What's up, Amazon sellers? Today, I am super excited to bring you an interview with someone I've been following for a while, John from the Side Hustle Experiment. And the reason why I'm interested in him is that he has decided to shut down one of his businesses and completely change his business model. I want to know why and what he learned in that. Stay tuned. Okay, so today I'm super excited to be here to interview John from the Side Hustle Experiment. Why? Because quite simply, he started with one business model and he decided to stop that and change to another business model. And I want to learn a little bit more about that, what he's learned, and hopefully share some insights for you as well. So John, thank you so much for, should we say, taking the time out of your busy schedule to come join me today. If anyone doesn't know who you are, can you give us a quick rundown of yourself and obviously the journey that you've been on?
Yeah, sure. Thank you so much for having me. I've been following you for a while now too, and yeah, just fascinated with your journey as well. Yeah, I'm John Muscarello, Side Hustle Experiment on Instagram, YouTube, pretty much everywhere. And yeah, I started thrifting books about 4-ish years ago. Actually, when I first started was 5 years ago. I started doing flipping furniture from Facebook Marketplace and Craigslist, and made about like 25 grand the first year just doing it on the weekends. And I was like, but I hit a problem when I went home to New York for Christmas and people wanted to buy stuff, and I was not in Pennsylvania where I live now. And yeah, I lost a lot of sales. I'm like, there has to be like a better way. I was in an apartment, like furniture is big, it's like it just wasn't working. It was working, but to take it to the next level, it wasn't going to work how I was doing it. And I had a job doing that. And one of the things that kind of got me to do Amazon is when I first took my job, we kind of had an agreement like, hey, if you do a good job, we're going to give you more money after 3 months. So I did a good job, got the money. And then when it came time for a raise at the end of the year, they were like, oh, we already gave you a raise earlier. And I was like, oh, like that wasn't really the deal. Like, so then that moment, I was like, I need to be in control of the money I'm able to make and have like no one else in control of it. So that's when I started doing the furniture. Then I saw a video about Reezy Resells. He was going to, how to make money online, the typical YouTube, Google search or whatever. Came across that. I thought it was kind of ridiculous. I was like, there's no way. Like, you're going to just pay $2 for a book at a thrift store and then sell it for $20, $30. I was like, whatever. Like, I'm one of those kind of people who just kind of follow the process. It's like, hey, he says this works. I've made good money flipping furniture. I'm gonna, take $1,000 and see how this goes. So did that, went to the thrift store. I always remember it. The first day I found a book for $2 and it was selling for $40 on Amazon. And I was looking at the back of the book and it said like the retail price was like $25. And I was like, there's no way. Like, this is so weird. Whatever, get home, send in the first books. Cause I was like so excited to do it. Like, I wasn't gonna wait for a full box. I just kind of want to see if it worked. And sure enough, like 2 weeks later, it sold for $40. And I was like, wow, like this is crazy. And then I just kind of went all in, scaled up, started making road trips to get, books and go to conferences and stuff like that to learn more, kind of upgraded equipment, and then basically got tired of driving, got into bulk books, quit my job. Then COVID happened, like lost my supplier, had to find another supplier, was doing it at like 2 storage units. And then after a year, I graduated into a warehouse, about 4,500 square feet, did bulk, got all the equipment, got a forklift, got a dumper, built table, like all the stuff that like you do. First year went really good. The day I moved in there, I moved in February, restock limits hit for the first time. So every time I do something new, like something else is like falls apart. Figured out how to do merchant fulfilled books. Don't like doing merchant fulfilled, just don't like doing it. So yeah, after the first year, I was just like, okay, like this went well. We were selling on eBay. So I kind of had like 2 separate businesses. And then restock limits started to get really bad right before, I think it was right before Christmas. They're like, hey, like no more, like it really hurt booksellers limits. I was able to send in like 10,000 units. Then it quickly went to like 8, then to 6. Then I was like 6, then it went to 4. I was like, this is just out of control right now. And I was like, that's it. Like, I'm done. Like, I need to start something else. I was very fortunate to have built, you know, a network from doing books and sharing on Instagram and all that kind of stuff and YouTube, that I knew a lot of people who were doing online arbitrage as well. So I kind of leaned on them. And yeah, what really got it propelled is I was kind of on the fence, and I'm one of those people who almost have to like force myself to do something. So I literally made a YouTube video saying that if I don't spend $1,000 on OA products, I'm giving someone $1,000. And actually I posted it on Instagram, and one of the people I knew was like, bro, like you're being ridiculous. Like, let's get on a call. I'll show you like exactly like what you have to do. And like he helped me figure it out. And then I spent $1,000, and then slowly but surely, you know, try to do OA, eBay, and books, and it just was not working. I was like, all right, I'll do books one week, OA the next week. It was kind of working. Then like as soon as I dropped one, the other business like fell apart. It was just, so I was like, it was probably June, right around my birthday. I was like, you know what? I'm done. This is not a good financial decision because I have this warehouse for another 8 months at the time. And I was like, but like the money I've saved through the business and, you know, what I want to do with OA, like I should be fine to the end of the lease. And yeah, it turned out to work out. It was hard to kind of eat all that rent, but I realized it was an investment in the future, and that to do both, it was just going to be a huge headache and I wouldn't get good at OA. And it was kind of like, what's the point of doing books like if you're leaving? So basically, second thing, sold all the book equipment. So it made it impossible to do books anymore. Because I'd have a rough day trying to find OA products, and I'd be like, you know what, I'll just get another load of books. It will be fine. But then I got rid of all the equipment, and then it was like, well, you have to do books. You have to do OA now.
Wow, that's like, obviously it's quite, I just wrote down there, I just wrote go all in. You know, burn the ships, you know, make the commitment.
That was it. And it was just like, listen, I had like the resources, I had enough like runway, I have a good credit, so I was able to easily get credit cards, kind of a little risk averse. So I'm kind of getting a little better with, I did a lot in Q4. Like I felt really over leveraged. I'm kind of one to have all the money in the bank to like clear the cards should something happen, or, you know, Amazon doesn't pay you or whatever. But yeah, I'm starting to like get into it, and yeah, when you don't have a choice, you just have to do it. And yeah, it worked out. Luckily.
So question for you, where are you now? Talk about like, so obviously this is about 4 years ago you started, you did 25K. You know, are you happy to share numbers now? Like, what does the business look like right now?
Yeah, sure. So the business right now, so the book business was pretty much finished. I think we did close to $500,000 the year before that. And then this year, I think it was like maybe 90,000. So like huge drop off there. So yeah, that was probably the most stressful part, building OA and watching those numbers like sink down. And I didn't really account for the cash flow I'd be losing to like build the OA business. But yeah, so the OA business, we did close to 600,000 last year. July is when we got really focused. For me, as soon as I focused and got rid of books, we were kind of doing like 10 to 15K, and I couldn't break that. And then once I focused, it went from like 40 to 50, I think 70 in November, and then we did 120 in December. And then for full transparency, like I moved out of the warehouse in January, lost all my VAs, and we ended up doing like 40 in January. But we're back on track to do probably like 60 or 70 this month, and we'll be back to 100. But it is what it is. We had a really great December, so it's not like we're hurting. But yeah, it was just another piece of the journey. Like, got to get out of the warehouse. Like, this is what you have to do. We had a cleaning crew lined up. They backed out, and then that kind of screwed up the week. Then 2 days after that, the VAs got fired because they were working for other people, and it was just a whole thing. But it makes you tougher, so it's all good.
Let me ask you a question, because obviously you've been through quite a lot. Like, my God, you bought a warehouse, you invested in that, you got 2 VAs, you built a business up, you closed that down, you got to 120K, now it's gone down to 40. Like, why don't you give up? A lot of people would just give up and be like, no, I've had too much, this is too much. Why don't you do that?
For me, like, so it sounds ridiculous, but for the books, I knew that my goal, it was really hard to let books go because that's where I started with. But when I kind of started books, I always knew that the goal was to do kind of like books to wholesale potentially. But then I didn't really like the idea of wholesale. I kind of like the idea of like books. Then when I got the warehouse, I was like, and I had to do merchant fulfilling, I was like, ooh, I don't like this. So that was kind of a learning lesson. And then, you know, why don't you quit? It's like, because I see so much potential. Like the 40K, like I knew that's what I was doing. Like I had basically planned on that. It's like, listen, like at this point in the business, like this is just what has to happen in order to take it to the next level. And I knew after Q4, just seeing what was happening with, we spent almost 100K in, October and November. And I was like, it's just a money thing. So like we didn't source in, halfway through December to like basically 2 weeks into January. So I was like, that's why. And it's like, okay, no big deal. Like we just have to buy stuff, find new stuff, and like we'll be right back there. But I wouldn't probably be able to get back there without like getting around the warehouse and like kind of like cleaning ship and starting over. So yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
But one thing I want to kind of ask you is around, you talked about it, we did eBay, we did Amazon, I was doing books, I was doing OA. You used the word cleaning ship. Like,
yeah.
I know a lot of sellers who are like, oh, I want to do this and I want to do that. And this is another revenue stream, another revenue stream. Like, what are your thoughts on that kind of mentality?
So for that, I think it's good if you could do it and still continue to run the other one as good as it was running and have it keep improving. That was kind of one of the downfalls. Like books wasn't totally automated. I mean, to automate a book operation is much more difficult than to do an OA operation. So yeah, I had to split my attention between that, eBay, FBA, Merch Fulfill, and then it was like OA. And I didn't really know how to do OA. So I was kind of learning along the way. And yeah, I think extra revenue streams are great, but a lot of the biggest people like Jeff Bezos and Warren Buffett, all those guys, like they made a ton of money on one thing and then went and got all the other stuff. So I think that's kind of a good path to be on. And that's kind of what I want to do.
So you're saying make all the money in one kind of niche or one vertical and then look at diversifying after that. And you talk about like automate, have it automated before you make that kind of extract and move to the next level.
Yeah, definitely. That was my biggest downfall. Like I didn't have systems in place so I could just focus on moving out of the warehouse and have things like continue to run without me. So yeah, if I had that in place, then yeah, it wouldn't have been like a big deal, but here we are.
And just recap for me. I just want to make really crystal clear. Why did you stop books? Like, I'm guessing you're profitable. My God, you had a warehouse. You were growing. You said, don't worry about your job. I've got my own pay rise coming in. But like, what was it like in your mind? Why was the thing to say, no, that's it, I'm done. I'm not doing books anymore. I'm moving to OA.
For me, books, it was just too volatile. There was no really, at the time, there was really no rhyme or reason to how much storage they gave you. Now it's a little more clear, what they want. They're going to give you about a month's worth to sell or whatever they're doing now. And they don't sell that quickly. So books is a nightmare if you want, like books is really hard to do on a large scale unless you really like blow it up and you want to do merchant fulfilling and all the other stuff that goes with it. But for me, I didn't want to do merchant fulfilling. I was tired of being kind of tied down to the warehouse. So when I went to a conference in Miami, I kind of had to shut the warehouse down because I'm not there. It's a major liability to have someone or two people there with like 1,000-pound boxes and all sorts of stuff. And then I can't merchant fulfill because I'm not physically there. So it was just a lot of different things. And, being able to, I'm going to the Miami Seller Conference in 2 weeks or 3 weeks, whenever it is. Like I'm going there almost like a week early and I'm just going to work from there and like, I wouldn't be able to do that with books. And I think that just really changed for me. And it was really the pandemic too, because 2 years prior, when I quit my job and was doing out of storage units, Amazon said, only essential items and household items. And that was just I should have did it right then. But I just quit my job and I was like, well, I don't know this. And like, I knew you need more capital. So I was like, I'm just stay the book path. But in my head, I was just like, well, people will always buy that stuff and Amazon will most likely always allow you to ship that stuff. So that's the stuff I should be selling. And that's kind of was my logic. And now is kind of the logic too. It's like, you know what? Books, yeah, they keep saying, everyone's reading them or whatever. But you know what? People are always going to buy toothpaste, deodorant, stuff like that over. And even if the world melts and the economy goes down so much, like they're still going to buy that stuff.
Wow, interesting. Yeah, I think it's really interesting, and I know from the fact that myself, how I sell. I love the idea of the fact that I can be on my laptop and be anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
And when we leave our jobs, we look for an element of, yes, we want financial security, but also we want an element of flexibility and freedom to enjoy the world. Because once you get the money, you want to be able to enjoy it. Not like, I'm really rich, but I can't actually do anything. So like you say, obviously I'll be there at Miami Sales Conference, but like,
Oh, nice.
the idea is to go and it's like, hey, I'm going to spend a week, like, absolutely fantastic. And that's lovely, isn't it, to be able to do that thing?
Yeah, because last year there were a couple people like, hey, we're gonna stay later, do you want to stay like an Airbnb? And I was like, I wish, but I gotta like go back and like sell books. And because like one of the big things too about books is everything has to align, which could be very tough. So like, you're gonna get a bunch of books, so you gotta book the supplier and say, hey, come on Monday. How we were doing it, the supplier came on Monday, we got through all the books on Tuesday, like Monday, Tuesday, maybe a little Wednesday, listed all the books. Now someone has to pick up all the bad books. They pick all the bad books up, things get sorted, we list stuff, put stuff on eBay, and then the next guy comes on Monday with the new books. So like, if one person falls out either way, it's really hard. And like in suppliers with books too, it's kind of a tight industry. Like if you're not buying every week, like they're kind of looking for other options. So it was just a constant juggling game.
Oh my God, I can certainly understand. So obviously you quit. Basically, you quit. You started OA and then you decided to quit. So the one thing I really want to understand is you came at the OA game. Most of the people who do OA, generally it's the first business model they go into, but you didn't. You went into it from doing books first. Obviously, you understand about Amazon. The question I want to ask you is, what did you learn on that OA journey from your side? The reason is because people who are starting OA, they're like, they hear the old, here's how you get started, but like, I'm quite interested to see, like, what did you pick up? What did you learn on that journey, building that OA business?
Yeah, so I thought it would be an easy transition because I did books. I was like, oh, I've been selling on the platform and been successful for 2-3 years or whatever it was. And I was just like, okay, like, I know how to read a keep-a chart for books and stuff like that. Like, this shouldn't be that hard. From what I gathered from social media and like kind of videos I watched, it seemed really easy. To be honest. And then, as you scale, it's funny, like once I hit 120K, you just know what is real and what isn't. Cause like you've been there before, but like before you're getting there, you really don't know like what it takes to get there. And like what if other people are saying, is that how you really get there? So I think for me, it's hard. Like I have a Discord now, I have Instagram's growing, getting DM'd like 20-30 DMs a day. And a lot of them are like, how are you finding stuff? And like, it's a crappy answer. It's, you gotta search more. Like it takes hours and hours. And like, I looked at Seller Amp the other day and we like 80,000 products have been looked at since we started in like, I don't know, last year. Like just crazy amount of products. And that's what it takes. You just got to keep going through them. So I learned that, you just really have to push through. I mean, yeah, October, November, we spent like 100K. Really uncomfortable, like looking at that like credit card, hey, is this going to work? Is this going to, I've been here before, hopefully this works, and it did, but like you just always have to like push it to the next level and just kind of understand how the business works and how it scales, and that there are just so much opportunity out there. It just really comes down to putting enough time into it to find the opportunities and buy the stuff and test the stuff. And I think the biggest learning for me, I did the OA challenge with Chris Grant, and one thing that basically changed the whole business was he was like, you realize like you could just test by like 2 or 3 units. I was like, well, really? Like everyone's saying you got to buy 18, you got to buy 36 because it's going to go to all the same warehouse, all this stuff. And like I was passing up a lot of stuff that was like $30-$40 because it's like, like I don't know if this is going to work. Like to buy 18 of those, it's a lot. And then I started buying like 2 or 3, and then like, oh, they sold. Then I'm like, okay, now I'm going to buy 18. So that kind of changed everything. So I do a lot of test buying, very wide, not deep. So yeah, just test buy a lot of stuff. A lot of people, hey, what do you think about, just buy it, like buy 3 of them, see how it goes, and then like make a decision.
It's interesting, like I get it a lot where people are like how do you do it? And you're like, it's called hard work. and you're going to hate it. And unfortunately, and I think the saying, obviously it's not my saying, but it's one that I always go back to, is it never gets any easier. You just get better at doing it. And the more you practice, the better you're going to get. You just know which ones to skip, you know where to spend your time, and you're going to statistically find more results. It's really interesting, but it is a grind. It's a really hard thing. And I do say to people, like, appreciate the grind, because a lot of people will give up, but that means there's profit for you once you figure it out, and that's really good. I love you talk about test buys, agreed, and it's kind of like, oh my god, I need to buy so much. Like, I still remember the day when I spent 1,000 in one order. I was like, oh my god, this is too much money. I can't do it. Like, oh my god. And now it's kind of like, what? You've only spent 1,000? Like, come on, do some work. So it's a very different kind of position. But I love the fact that you say just buy a few. And I think a lot of people go into this whole kind of business model where, like, I need to make money right now. It has to be profitable. And I'm like, no, it's an education. Just buy 5 or buy 3. And if you break even, fantastic. You've learned what doesn't work. The downside on this isn't really that bad. Like, it's such an amazing business model.
Yeah, the big counter I get to that all the time is like, well, like, it's so cheap right now. Like, it's on as like they're going to run another sale. And you know what? If they don't run another sale, like, now when you see a keep it chart like that, you could buy heavier, like a test buy next time. So, like, yeah, that's kind of how I look at it.
There's something you mentioned. You did 120K. You were massive amounts on the credit cards. You mentioned it earlier on. You talked about leveraged. Have I over leveraged? Tell me about that. Like, how do you deal with that? Because that's a scary thing, scaling credit cards, personal debt, maybe business debt. I don't know. Tell me about that. How do you deal with that?
Yeah. So for me, I think the highest it was ever I spent in a month was about 40K. And that was kind of like, ooh, that's a lot. And then I was like, you know what? Like, Q4, like, you know what you're doing. Someone was like, dude, you need to stop with like the 12 and the 10. Like, you need to like start buying like bigger qualities, because like, you know what you're doing now. And like, if you did your test buy and your homework, then you got to pull the trigger more. So I was like, you know what? Q4 is going to be that. I literally downloaded, I had a really rough patch where I think it was June or July, where I think I had like 5% ROI because I just went hard in apparel, and then it all got returned like the next month, and I was like, oh man. So I literally went through inventory labs, that's another thing that really changed the game, was downloading everything, dividing the sales by the returns, and coming up with like a return percentage, and then only buying stuff that had a return rate under 10. So I was still buying apparel, but now it was much more targeted and lower returns. So basically that's kind of what I did. But yeah, it's just one of those things where I started the business where, hey, I want to have in the bank whatever I have on the credit cards in case like something happens or I don't get paid or whatever. I really don't like the advice, like get a plum card and like run it up, and because especially if you don't know what you're doing, that's probably the worst thing you could do. And yeah, then when it came Christmas time, it was like, okay, I was probably all personal, like money plus business money plus expected payout was probably like the 100 grand. So I was like, okay, like, you know what you're doing. It's just kind of, you just have to trust that you know what you're doing and kind of go for it. And then, yeah, as soon as stuff started selling on Amazon, I would get like the daily payout, put that towards the credit card and kind of like keep it rolling. And then I was like, wow, like I wish I spent more. Like, you just have to feel like that angst. And also I pretty much all the stuff I bought throughout the year. So I was really familiar like with how many I could probably sell, whether it was going to get returned or not. So they were kind of safe buys. Like, I pretty much bought all of it throughout the year and had a really good idea that I wasn't going to have any issues with it and things were going to be fine.
Fantastic. I think, yeah, it's really interesting. I think you talk about like, a lot of people on social media will talk about like get credit cards, do this route, do that. And like, I think it's very dangerous in the fact that like, people say, I've got like 10 grand to invest. I'm like, cool, spend 1,000. That's it. And you're going to make so many mistakes. But then once you know what you're doing, then spend the other 9. And it's the same thing. Like, don't go out there and get massive credit because you're going to make mistakes. Welcome to it. But like, there will come a point, I think, at least 3 months, probably 6 months in, where you really start to get this and you've seen the cycle of stock and you know what's good and bad, and you've dealt with the dead stock as well, the stuff that hasn't sold, because that's one thing we don't see for a couple of months. And then also you can really start looking at, okay, now I can use some form of leverage. But again, I think you've got to be careful. Like, with great power comes great responsibility, and leverage is a form of power. So question for you, you're out of the warehouse, no longer doing books, traveling the world, Miami for an extra week. What's the plans for the future? What are you going to do next year?
For me, I'm definitely want to grow the Amazon OA side of things. Everything now is OA to prep, which I really like. Yeah, and I will say I had a really bad prep experience too. Like when I first started, they held like 10 grand worth of inventory. That's a whole nother story. But like, I think it's like almost a story, like kind of when you were saying before, like, why didn't you give up? And it's just like, because I made a mistake and like, I didn't know what I was doing, but like the opportunity is still there. It's just, I misplayed the hand and like lost kind of thing. But yeah, I want to do probably 1.5 million in sales this year. 2 million's like the stretch. Just seeing after what was possible in Q4 and kind of like back to school season, those will kind of be like 2 big times for the business. And yeah, just keep getting better and then put a team in place. That I know that's going to take probably, you know, close to a year to kind of get people in, get things situated, and kind of get that rocking and rolling. And then I also started a Discord, the FBA Inner Circle, which helping a ton of people in there. So yeah, just kind of want to make more content and yeah, keep the Amazon business going and kind of help other people and kind of try to take a different approach too on social, where it's like, hey, like, yeah, it's not the great idea to get a plum and like run it, like more logical, like still sell the dream, but like be more realistic about the dream, that like it's a dream because you're going to work really hard for a year and put the pieces together and then realize you have to keep putting the pieces together to keep the dream going.
Yeah, I agree. It never stops. We still have to keep working on it. And the moment we step out of the business, the business will start going down, and we see that sometimes. But we're in it for the long haul, and that makes a really big impact. Exactly. So if anyone wants to get in contact, what's the best way of doing it?
Instagram's the best, @Side Hustle Experiment. Answer pretty much all the DMs, and the Discord too. FBA Inner Circle. There's a link in the Instagram bio for that.
Fantastic. And if anyone wants to know, I will drop it down in the description so you can see that and obviously access all that. John, I just want to say thank you so much for sharing. Thank you for your journey. And obviously, I'd love to catch up more with you at Miami Sellers Conference and perhaps maybe in a year's time, see how you got on, see the 1.5 million, see the team, see how have you gone back to books or what's gone on. I'm super excited. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much for having me. This is awesome.
All right. Take care. Bye-bye.